Before we get to today's show, I'd like to invite you to become a part of this show. If you have hiked the John Muir Trail, whether you section hiked it or through hiked it, or if you intend to hike it in the future, then give us a call, 818-925-0106, and please leave a voicemail telling us a little bit about your experience, a memory, a hardship, what you're looking forward to, or how it affected your life positively or even negatively. At the end of this season, I am hoping to collect these voice messages and edit them into an episode focused on the John Muir Trail. So if you would like to potentially have your voicemail appear on the show, call us up, 818-925-0106. Leave us your name, whether that is your real name or your trail name, where you are located, and give us your thoughts within 3 minutes about the John Muir Trail. Thank you ahead of time, and let's get to the show. Hey everybody, welcome to episode 99 of the Go Get Outside podcast. This is your host, Jason Milligan. Welcome back. Welcome aboard. Earlier this season, I promised you that we would have 4 episodes from North Carolina, and today is the second of those episodes. It's a short and sweet episode where we talk about a lot of different things, featuring self-proclaimed world's worst climber and hillbilly, Reinhold. He is an adventure philanthropist and creator of the #Trashtag movement. And hopefully this is a great way for everyone to get ready for Earth Day on April 22nd. This was recorded in a windy shelter on the Appalachian Trail in North Carolina late last year, and we discuss a lot of aspects of Steven's life, everything from his early days in the outdoors, how his time with Big City Mountaineers led him towards adventure philanthropy. We're going to discuss photography, the realities of being a brand ambassador, the past and future of #Trashtag, and how social media movements can actually be a beneficial thing. So let's go now and talk to Reinhold.
So I'm Reinhold, and I like to think of myself as an adventure philanthropist. I've kind of quickly realized early on in my climbing career that I may be the world's worst climber, so I figured I better do something else to kind of make a name for myself in the outdoors, and it's kind of started this idea of pursuing positivity through my adventures and kind of supporting charitable causes, social justice, kind of ecological movements, things like that through my adventures.
So let's talk about how you get there, because you don't just come out of the womb and you decide, I want to be a philanthropist and that I'm going to attempt to be a terrible climber. So what's the process from the womb that got you there? What'd your life look like?
For sure. So, I don't know, kind of always had this innate desire to want to do some sort of charity work. It started out, I thought I was going to maybe go install wells in Africa and like provide clean drinking water or something along that. Just even from a young age, I had the desire to do something like that. So fast forward through life, I was actually a really big baseball player. I played in high school and in college and got to play in like College World Series and stuff like that. So that kind of dominated my life through college. But then when I got done, I needed kind of like an athletic outlet, and I'd moved back to the mountains in North Carolina and took up backpacking. And
is that where you grew up, in North Carolina?
Yeah, so I grew up in Waynesville, North Carolina, near Asheville. I mean, I enjoyed going outside, but it wasn't like a passion, it wasn't a way of life for me. But so after kind of got more and more into it, heard of a organization called Big City Mountaineers. And what they do is they take inner city kids on wilderness mentoring trips, and they have a fundraising program called the Summit for Someone program. And basically you can go climb a mountain and raise funds which go towards the kids' trips, and then in return you get a guided climb and a gear package. So I had decided to sign up for this climb on Mount Whitney out in California. And it was way out of my comfort zone. As soon as I drove up and saw the mountain, I was pretty convinced I was going to die there.
Yeah, it is an imposing place.
For sure. But, I kind of realized that, like, that charitable aspect helped kind of, like, tip the scale for me to, like, I want to go do this. I want to try to climb this mountain as opposed to just climbing it for myself to prove that I could do it. And so, like, I kind of realized and got into that and started to, adopt that theory into other aspects of life.
Yeah, so tell us a little more about that group that you got involved with. Like, what are some of the results that you would see when you would take these kids outdoors?
The kids, they go on wilderness mentoring trips. They don't actually do the mountaineering climbs. Those are adults that are fundraisers. But I've also led some of the trips as a mentor as well, and they're incredible. It's I think kind of the growth that people, probably a lot of your listeners, see from themselves in the outdoors. It's like compacted into a week for these kids. They get to learn resiliency, kind of self-confidence, self-care in particular. And each trip there's 5 kids and 5 adult mentors, so it's like a very formative, kind of structured learning experience for them as well.
How do the kids get involved? Do they sign up for this themselves, or do people convince them to come along? Because I could see you struggling with, if you get a kid who thinks, I don't like this stuff, I don't want to do it, then you've got to help them overcome that. But if it's kids who are like, I never got to do this, I want to give it a try, that could be a totally different situation.
Yeah, so Big City Mountaineers, in each area they're located, they will partner with organizations in the area, maybe like a Boys and Girls Club or a YMCA, and they'll go to them and say, give us 5 kids that you think will really benefit from this trip. They kind of work with them to kind of pre-select and see which kids they think would really benefit from it. And then also on that trip, basically a representative from that organization will join, so a guidance counselor or a teacher, so somebody that already has a rapport with the kids will join along, and that really seems to help facilitate the trips.
Yeah, what are some of the challenges that you face bringing these kids who haven't had these experiences outside and then trying to introduce them to it?
The biggest challenge to start with is gathering their cell phones at the start and turning those off and sequestering them for the trip.
Yeah, does that take like 6 hours for that to happen?
It's a hard learning curve there. The normal camp things that you see, the things that we kind of take for granted, like putting a rain jacket on before it starts raining, or getting to camp and having your tent set up before it might start raining and things of that nature. But for me, it's neat because it's kind of like, a microcosm for life, basically. That's what camping and outdoor stuff is for me. Anytime I go on a hike or a camping trip, I go back to regular life and it seems easier.
After the kids go on these trips, are they then invited back and they come back, or is there a limited number of times?
Yeah, there's certainly alumni events, and certainly they're encouraged to continue doing these things, but I think it's definitely looked at as more of a wilderness mentoring type program, with the hopes that they fall in love with the outdoors and continue that on their own.
You have any particular stories that jump to mind of like particularly memorable experiences or a big change you saw in someone or anything like that?
Yeah, for sure. Honestly, so I went with a group. They called themselves the Lit Squad. And we went on a trip. It was in the Flat Top Wilderness in Colorado, and just all of them, like the amount of growth they showed in a week was incredible. It seemed like young men after the trip as opposed to like lost juveniles before it.
Yeah, what kind of feedback do you get from these guys sometimes afterwards?
That's kind of like a fluid situation throughout the trip. They're usually stoked to start with, and then about halfway through they're homesick and hate it a little bit.
Somebody's pissed off at some point.
Something happens, but then by the end of it you really see, kind of like I was saying, that just kind of like that growth. And like one kid, George in particular, that at the start he was really kind of like shy and timid, and then on the last day he volunteered to lead the group back, and he was just like, you could tell he had kind of like turned the corner that day into like adulthood.
Yeah, and so this is just one of the groups that you're involved with, right? So what are some of the other things you're doing?
I do some work with a group called All Hands and Hearts. Me and Lee from the Appalachian Gear Company are getting ready to go to Nepal and work with them, and they do disaster relief, but in Nepal in particular they've focused on building schools and then using those as a community center, like a storm shelter, and a school system for that community. And part of their deal is they also educate the community in the construction process. So they basically create a group of people that are able to do masonry work, construction, like civil engineers and things of that nature through the programs.
Yeah, so what's this Nepal trip you're going on looking like?
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. So it's through Backpacker Magazine. I'm an ambassador, a representative for them. And we're going to be there. We'll be working on the school for a week with All Hands and Hearts. Then afterwards we go on a trek on the Narfu Valley. It's off the Annapurna circuit, kind of recently opened up within the last 10 years or so, and so it's kind of less traveled and a little more secluded, which is pretty cool. So I'm stoked to be going on that for sure.
And so you mentioned being an ambassador, and I think that's a word for the outdoor community that everybody's getting used to hearing now.
Yeah.
But I think it's also one of those things where people wonder, like, well, how the hell somebody become an ambassador? So, yeah, what was that like? How did you go from yourself to an ambassador for Backpacker Magazine?
Oh, man. So that was
and what exactly does that entail?
Well, an ambassador is wide-ranging in the outdoor industry. It can mean basically you get used for your pictures, or you actually get supported by companies. And, yeah, like I said, it can go a long way. So, like, companies like Backpacker, App Gear Co. that are very supportive and like work with me on projects and things of that nature are wonderful to work for. There's unfortunately there's a lot of companies out there that crowdsource their photography and media. They might be willing to give you a shirt but then take 20 pictures or something along those lines. So it's a blurred line. Most all companies have some sort of representatives or ambassadors of sorts, but it just kind of depends company to company, as opposed to like if they're just customers giving pictures, or if they're like actually part of the program, so to speak.
What does your ambassadorship look like? Is it that you're a photographer? Is that primarily what interests them in you, or is it something else?
For Backpacker, I think part of it is just an extended relationship that I've had with them. So how I found out about Big City Mountaineers and that Mount Whitney climb was in Backpacker Magazine. It was an invite to climb with their editors, and so I've just become friendly with them over the years. I really, really respect what they do. I think they're kind of, for me, they're the voice of the outdoors. So I signed up actually this trip to Nepal. I did this same trip in the spring, but signed up as a reader or enthusiast. Had so much fun on it and enjoyed it. And afterwards, they decided they're trying to kind of keep this adventure philanthropy angle up, and they asked me to jump on board as an ambassador. So I was really excited about that.
You contacted them, built a relationship without that intention necessarily.
Totally.
So
Yeah,
it wasn't like they came across you through Instagram or something like that.
For sure, and that does happen a lot. A lot of people with large followings and things of that nature will get those relationships easy. There's a lot of companies, particularly in the outdoor industry. I have to brag on them as a whole, because they are willing to work with people that want to do cool things, that want to raise awareness about social injustices, or raise awareness about climate change, things of that nature, and want to help with that. And I don't necessarily see that in other industries. There's a lot of collaboration and kind of this positivity. I like to call it cause-based commerce, basically.
What was your relationship with the outdoors? Were you one of those kids that just spent all your time outside, or is it something you came along later? What did it look like when you were growing up?
So I did. I grew up in the country, and I played outside a lot. I wouldn't have considered myself outdoorsy as a child. We went camping, played in creeks, did all that kinds of stuff. But as far as like a backpacking enthusiast or climber, none of that really came along until after college, and one of my friends introduced me to that. But for me, I find it's kind of like it's a place to heal. It's a place where I find my best self, and that's kind of why I enjoy getting other people involved in the outdoors, things like Big City Mountaineers and things of that nature.
It's definitely one of those things that happens, right? It seems like almost anyone who really gets into the outdoors eventually clicks over to where they're like, well, I need to share this with other people. I need to show other people how valuable this can be to them. I think it's really easy for people to think like, oh, it's just a hobby you go do. It's just a frivolous thing. But there's so much value to yourself and even what you can share with others that can come from it, that we all just kind of become these, I guess I'm going to say ambassador just because you've been saying those words, but unintentionally we become this ambassador for outdoors for everyone else. For sure.
That's what it's about. And I think that's why a lot of those companies tap into that. It's a very authentic story. There's so many people out there that are just kind of like living their truth, hiking their own hike, so to speak, and it's a wonderful story to tell.
And you said it was a buddy of yours in college that kind of ended up doing that for you. What was that trip like? What did he take you to do?
It was great. Yeah, it was this place called Shining Rock. It was in the fall, a place where you could pick blueberries, and the colors were incredible, and that was amazing. Yeah, his name's John Hayward. Ironically, I'm sure we get into it talking about the Trashtag Project. He was the same friend that was with me when that started.
So that first trip, what were you like? Did you know what you were doing at all?
No, just wide-eyed. Wide-eyed.
So what'd you go in doing? Was it a backpacking trip, or?
I guess it was a day hike technically, but a long one, probably 15 miles or so. Had some scrambling, some climbing involved, stuff like that, and it was just like a fully immersive experience. And then after that, I decided I wanted to keep doing that, and got really into hiking. I did what was called the South Beyond 6,000 Challenge. There's basically 40 mountains in the southeast that are over 6,000 feet, and there's basically a challenge or a club for the people who climb all of those. And I got into that, and I loved it. I was done with that. I kind of thought I was done with Appalachians for a little bit, and I moved out to Colorado, was a snowboard instructor / ski bum for a few years, and enjoyed that. Then came back to to Carolina and fell in love with the mountains again.
So ski instructor.
Yeah.
Were you into skiing before that, or
Totally.
Okay, so you didn't show up and have to learn to ski and then learn to be an instructor.
Again, like I kind of alluded to, I'm a little bit of a hillbilly, so I grew up snowboarding in a pasture when it was
nice.
And so this is still like early 90s, late 80s when the snowboarding was still just getting in, so like figuring out how to do it, and like finally the ski resort let you onto it and we were able to go, and it was really cool.
A lot of what you provide is photography, right? And it's part of your ambassadorship. So how did you come into photography? Is that something you were doing like early on? Or?
So I've always enjoyed documenting my trips. I didn't get into that into a professional level until my business partner. I run something called the Appalachian Adventure Company, and we do some guiding and content creation and stuff like that. And so he's pretty much like a savant level photographer, and he taught me all kinds of stuff, pretty much everything I know about it. We started running photography workshops and clinics, and I would do the guiding logistics, but was always listening and learned everything from him.
So this came to you like in your adult life?
Oh yeah, maybe this is only like 3 or 4 years ago, really.
Oh, so
I mean, like
recently.
I said, I recorded all my trips, had GoPro, and did cell phone pictures, had a point and shoot and all of that, but never really dived into like the professional side of photography and everything. More of those like ambassadorships and stuff were based on writing blogs and more written word as opposed to visual content.
So once you meet him and he starts teaching you these different skills and starts showing you different ways to think about your photographs, how quickly did your quality of photographs change?
Oh gosh, immensely. Yeah. It's made a huge difference, and for me it's great. For a couple years I never even tried to like sell anything. That never crossed my mind. It was more of just like a creative outlet, kind of a challenge each situation and try to take the best picture I could or the most creative one, and then it finally, like, I don't know, just kind of like again came to a tipping point where I was like, you know what, I feel comfortable enough with that work that I feel like I can put a value to it now and try to market that.
So what is it about photographs you think make them special?
Anything that draws you in. Creating depth in a picture is one of the best ways to do that, but particularly for like an outdoor kind of perspective, something that makes you feel like you see it and you're there at that campsite, you're there by that fire, you're there at that sunset, something that just like draws you in immediately and makes you feel like, oh, I want to be in that situation.
Now that everybody has a phone with a camera on it, a lot more people find themselves interested in photography, and then they think, hey, maybe I could develop this skill further. What's your advice to them if they're listening and they think, oh, I want to develop my photography skills also? There's
all kinds of educational outlets out there. Taking a photography workshop with us is a great idea. Watching YouTube videos, getting books, things of that nature. And I would highly encourage it. I would encourage people that are willing to get or thinking of getting into it to diversify themselves, be able to write, be able to take videos, still shots, all that kinds of stuff. Because like you said, there's a million people out there, billions of people out there with cameras and cell phones and that are able to create content. So it's really difficult to distinguish yourself from that pack.
You are an ambassador for Backpacker Magazine, so I know a lot of people here like, oh, this person's an ambassador for this and an ambassador for that. So let's talk about the misconceptions, and then does that mean your full-time job is an ambassador taking photos for Backpacker Magazine? Because I bet the answer is no.
No, not even close, yeah. So like I said, Backpacker's great to me, honestly. They're, pretty much providing this trip, giving me an outlet to tell my story, photos and pictures, and that's been wonderful. Like I said, that's one of those in particular where they're allowing me to grow through them, so I really appreciate that. That's not always been the case. Like I said, it's difficult to make a living doing that stuff. My business partner and I, Steve Yoakum, we've actually kind of branched out and started what we're calling the Adventure Syndicate. We're using it as a kind of like a PR branch of the adventure company because we've noticed that PR companies are able to actually make more of a living through that. And so we feel like we've developed enough of a skill set to where we want to step into that range. And part of that as well is kind of advocating for ambassadors. I come from a sports background, and every major sporting, not event, but league there is has a collective bargaining agreement and things of that nature. And there's not that for the outdoors. And I think that'd be not necessarily trying to set one of those up, but like starting that conversation of like how should you ethically treat your ambassadors or the people that you're crowdsourcing these photographs from and you're making money off of. I think that's definitely a conversation that needs to be started.
Right. It kind of becomes an issue about value then, right? Like It's like, how valuable are these people to you? How valuable should they see themselves? How much should they value these photographs or posts or whatever they're providing to you?
Yeah. And that's a hard thing too. It's like hard to put a value on those. I mean, what is a picture worth? It's a very hard thing to figure out how much to ask for them. it's a hard thing to figure out what the actual worth of those are. I mean, if you sell 1 million products off of a really good picture, then it's worth quite a bit. But if you're maybe just putting it online on your story on Instagram, and it's maybe not that big of a deal, but it's kind of,
it all comes down to usage,
exactly,
right?
yeah.
And the person or business that is using it. It could be the huge difference between a catalog photo that is going to help them sell a huge quantity of products versus something else that's just going to get people interested or aware of their brand in the first place. Yeah, and so what that value is and what that usage could be is such a varied thing.
Yeah, it's difficult. I mean, so at first I was really stoked to get like a puffy jacket or something in return for some photographs or things of that nature.
You can only have so many of those.
Yeah, you can't take those down to Bank of America and turn them in for your mortgage, kind of deal.
Yeah, they don't taste good. You can't cook them. Yeah.
Oh man. As
should be no surprise to anyone that is more aware of like these ambassadorship programs and things. You've got your hands in a lot of different things. Because I do think sometimes people think, well, I'm going to start an Instagram account, I'm going to get super popular, and then some brand's going to contact me and I'm going to be a millionaire. And that's what I do is I just take pictures from Patagonia all the time and put them on Instagram, and I never have to worry about anything again. And if anybody listening is thinking that, well, we're going to let you know that the reality isn't going to reflect that.
That was my initial dream too, honestly. Still trying to get there.
Yeah, so you've got, let's see if I can get these right. So you've got Adventure Syndicate, which you just mentioned.
Yep.
You've got the
Appalachian
Adventure Company. You're an ambassador for Backpacker Magazine. Others as well? Like, are you freelance photography all around?
Working with App Gear Co., Gerber Gear, Nick Wax, just a few different companies of that nature. And then kind of like my flagship or pride and joy, like we mentioned a little bit earlier, is the Trashtag Project that started that a few years ago. And it's basically like an online social cleanup movement, and encourages other people to either pick up trash or voice their environmental concerns, talk about how they're reducing their carbon footprint on the front end, things of that nature, but to specifically use their social media to encourage others to do so.
Yeah, let's talk about that because it is a topic I definitely want to get to and spend some time on, is this trash tag topic. So tell us what trash tag is exactly and how it came about in the first place.
Hashtag trash tag, like I said, is a online social cleanup movement. Came about, honestly, on one of these climbing trips I was talking about earlier for Big City Mountaineers. I was out in California near Mount Whitney again. This time I was climbing Mount Langley, which is close to Mount Whitney. And so my friend was out joined me on this road trip, and we were driving through, and a receipt blew out of our window. And the receipt was like for trucker hats and touristy T-shirts, and I just immediately had this like gut-wrenching feeling that I was the problem.
Yep. Suddenly you were one of the jerks.
Yeah, exactly. And so this like receipt's blowing off. There's nothing really I can do about it. It's like rolling through the Owens Valley there.
You're not going to find it.
Yeah. And so I just blurted out, I'm going to pick up 100 pieces of trash to make up for that on this trip. It was kind of like, atoning for that accident. And so on this trip, I was going to different national parks. Like I said, we were going to like Yosemite and found trash on Half Dome. Went to like Sequoia, Kings Canyon, and there's trash around all the trees. Later on the trip, go to Mount Shasta, and there's some trash laying on the slopes and stuff there. And then eventually, I'd get close to that 100-piece of trash goal, and I'd made my way up towards Jackson Hole in Wyoming. And I'm right there by Jenny Lake, and I find this like granola wrapper. And it's a 100-piece of trash.
So were you sincerely counting them as you went?
Oh, for sure. So I started actually along the way taking like pictures of it too, because I was kind of getting this idea of like, well, I'm in these like cool places, but there's always trash, and it kind of like ruins my view. So maybe I could start like encouraging other people to do that, and like the trash tag idea wasn't fully formed yet.
Right. And are you taking pictures of it where you found it so you can show where it exists?
Yeah, exactly. So like if I found one like a nice overlook, I would hold it up and basically ruin the view. The trash would be right in the foreground, or climb somewhere, and instead of taking like a summit selfie, I'd hold the trash up in front of the camera, and it like blocked my face out to show like, oh, this is more important than me kind of deal.
Right.
About the time that 100th one came along, I'd had the idea that I'd kind of like been geotagging these different locations, and I was like, trash tag. I'm trash tagging. That's what this is. This is called trash tag.
And is that something you're doing? You were getting the GPS coordinates and including
not
that? Not
necessarily the GPS, but it was just like these famous overlooks,
right,
and like places that were recognizable, and like wasn't necessarily like just the coordinates, not like a geocache, but it was along those lines. And so all these kind of ideas kind of blended together. The tail end of this road trip was the Outdoor Retailer Show, and a company that I'd worked with, Yuko Gear, at the time. They make all kinds of headlamps and camp accessories and things like that. I pitched the idea to them, and they helped sponsor it. And so we set an initial goal of picking up 10,000 pieces of trash in the first year, and did really well with that. Got maybe like about 15 or so. The next year, about the same, and it was growing organically for a while. mostly people in the outdoors, on trails, paddling, climbing, things of that nature. This March, in a fortunate series of events, a gentleman made a pickup post and it got tagged a trash tag cleanup, and it went viral all over the world. Kind of hard to even keep up with now at this point. It's been a pretty wild ride since that happened.
I find it really cool, and I think a lot of the good movement stories, they work kind of this way. It starts with like a small receipt flies out of a window unintentionally and then turns into this larger global thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's how a lot of things start. They start really small and then balloon into something else. And it wasn't like you intentionally were like, today I care about trash. There's this little thing triggers this thought in you that you realize is something more important. How long did it take to get to 100 pieces?
Let's see. So I guess maybe 2 or 3 weeks. I mean, I could have easily stayed in a spot and picked it up, but like
in one day.
Along that line, it kind of became like, I need like 100 different locations, or I need like 100 different spots to do this. Because like I said, it was all kind of like melding together through this, and before like that solid trash tag idea was formed.
It's funny because you could have picked up 100 pieces of trash in a single area, and then it would have showed the message of, look how much trash we put. Yeah. But then also picking up a piece of trash in 100 different areas shows, look how prevalent this is across a larger swath.
Yeah.
And so other people start participating, right?
Yeah, for sure. So like I said, it started out, my idea was like, the hiking community is not that large. I can contact almost all of them through Instagram and Facebook. And if I can like get them to start picking up trash on their adventures, we can really have an impact on the trail. So it started out as just basically like a wilderness cleanup movement. When it went viral, one of the interesting things that happened is young kids were the ones that were out there participating. And in particular, all over the world, in like third world countries, just different places that were around that. And so then it became not just like an outdoors thing. It was just basically more of a ecology thing, or like tied to like the climate movement and things of that nature. So and now it's even blossomed to where it doesn't even have to be picking up trash. I saw a lot of the kids from like the Fridays for Future and climate strike movements were trash tagging their posts. I've seen people that were talking about like, this cafeteria at my school has single-use plastics and I'd like to get it to stop. Trash tag. And so it's just become like a calling card.
Right.
Instead of hashtag, it's trash tag for anything that's environmental. And that's super cool for me.
So then this thing that starts with a small receipt falling out of a window that gives you this one little initial idea, which turns into a bigger idea, suddenly becomes an outlet for other ideas that are like tangential to it. But
totally.
Totally.
That's the coolest part about it, is everybody's taken trash tag and then added their like moniker, or like their name or their country after it. There's trash tag Kuwait, there's trash tag Iran, trash tag Egypt, trash tag Turkey, one in Russia. Just like all these people have kind of taken it and run with it, and it's super cool.
Yeah, it's quintessential definition of viral growth of something. Something I think is cool, because I was going to mention how trash tag must be bittersweet, because when you look at it and you see all these people are using it, it's like, great, that's making a difference, I hope, but it also shows how much damn trash there is. But then the fact that it's also kind of evolving into other things then makes it better than bittersweet, because you're now, oh great, now it's inspiring all these other things, and then helping these other movements grow so they can be something even further beyond that.
For sure. Yeah, I always, even from the start, I kind of had the idea like, it's just really holding up a mirror to the problem. You know, if we picked up all of the trash, what would happen? It'd be put in plastic bags and hoarded into landfills. And if we don't change our habits, like nothing has really happened. So it was initially just to like shine a light on that, and I'm so happy that it has made that turn, and is, in the future is going forward towards, just being like a calling card for anything environmental, because it's true. Like if we just pick up the trash, that's all we've done is swept everything under the rug, and it's like these systematic changes with plastics and to me, I think like large corporations making changes, and then the people demanding those to happen is like the only way we're going to actually get anything to seriously change. Right,
because one of the biggest solutions to trash is just to make less of it in the first place.
For sure.
So a hashtag, as most people know, is not a thing any individual owns. Anyone can choose to use it, which means it also isn't necessarily always attached to you, nor is it easy for you to follow its progression.
Yeah.
Do you try to keep up and see with how it is developing?
So honestly, social media has really made it pretty easy to follow that. So like on Instagram, I keep up with it, and I'm able to follow the hashtag trash tag itself, and I go on, not every day, but pretty close to it, and see the recent ones and the top ones, and try to communicate with different individuals along that. But yeah, it's somewhat difficult to keep up with. It's kind of great. It's just like I said, it's just people just taking it and run with it, because I can't really do that much as myself.
Right.
That was kind of the idea, was to inspire others to do it. So it's great that it's taken off like that.
It's beautiful because it's an example. People always use the excuse of, well, I'm just one person.
Yeah.
So I can't change a thing. But this is a great example of how one person can lead to many people.
Totally.
Sincerely making a change. So it's not directly linked to you. Do people recognize that you're linked to it and then contact you through email or other ways? Is there a way that you get feedback about it from people other than just searching it yourself online?
Yeah, certainly. So there's been a lot of different media outlets and stuff that have contacted me and done stories or interviews and things of that nature. Every once in a while, I find some people that like actually do recognize me, which is kind of a crazy happening for me. I'm not quite used to that yet.
You're the Trashtag guy.
Yeah, I got the Trashtag dude the other day. It was funny. I was like, yeah, I'm that dude. But yeah, like I said, by design, like hopefully it's kind of self-defeating. I don't know if it'll ever get to that.
Right, you don't want it to be too successful.
Yeah, exactly. I hope it really just like shines a light on the trash problem. But the biggest thing for me is we've already picked up millions of times more trash than I ever thought we'd get to. So like last September, we partnered with an organization called World Cleanup Day. And on September 20th, they had 20 million people in 180 countries picking up in a single day. And so we're working with them again next year. But the trash is great. But for me, the biggest thing is showing that social media can be used for good. Like they want to get that message out there. Social media is a great way to do it. It gets all these negative connotations and stuff, but we've literally helped like pick up the planet just through the power and connections of social media.
No, I like this story a lot because the easy go-to for everyone, especially if you're of a certain age and so you didn't grow up in the age of cell phones, if that came to you in your adult life, it's really easy to just look at social media and complain about all the potential issues.
Entitled millennials voicing their opinions.
Yeah,
and things of that nature.
yeah. Instead of recognizing like how it can make a positive change. Also, people are like, what's the phrase people use? Oh, there's some disparaging phrase people use for like online activists or something. It's not that, but something along those lines to insinuate it's like a person that's going to post to Twitter and not actually do anything. Yeah. Whereas this shows, no, you can actively do something, share it, and inspire other people to also actively do something.
For sure.
So with that in mind, what does your future look like? What are you working towards? You consider yourself an outdoor philanthropist, so what does your future philanthropy look like?
Yeah, well, so continuing to kind of drive the Trashtag Project, steer that in the right direction, continue to work with all hands and hearts, doing that type of stuff, and then just continuing to pursue positivity through adventures, kind of keeping an open mind. And when I see different endeavors, I get kind of that like gut feeling that I need to be involved with that. And once I feel that, I don't question it and go for it. So who knows what the next one that comes along will be. But yeah, definitely Trashtag for now. Like I said, through that Adventure Syndicate, the PR branch for the Adventure Company, we're kind of trying to drive diversity in the outdoors, things of that nature.
Yeah, so if people want to keep up with you, if they want to follow along with the things you're doing or somehow get involved with some of the things that you do, what are the best ways for them to do that? Online,
Instagram, Facebook, the Appalachian Adventure Company. So that's kind of the parent of all of this for us. So you can follow those along. Then we also have our website is appadventureco.com. Very similar to appgearco.com.
You guys, people are going to start confusing you guys. They're going to try to buy shirts from you.
To me, honestly, that was one of the beautiful things and why I got involved with it. It was like a lot of parallels, and a lot of our ideas are like our ethos are the same about our environmental friendliness and stuff like that. So I'm like really stoked to be on board with App Gear Co. for sure.
This isn't something that I asked John, but I'll ask you. So why choose Appalachians as kind of your mascot? Why choose that as the name of your company?
So I grew up here. Some people call me a hillbilly, and some people would call me an Appalachian American. So I'm a proud Appalachian American, so I just identify with that. I think there's a lot of negative connotations that go along with people from Appalachia a lot of times, and so through my travels, I try to help kind of break down those stereotypes a little bit.
Those stereotypes being moonshine,
poor grammar, banjo music, all that stuff.
God damn it, what was the name of that movie with
Deliverance?
Deliverance, that's what you've got to deal with, right?
It's one of the few subcultures that it's okay to still make fun of, honestly, interestingly enough. But yeah, so for me, I just take a lot of pride in that. And for Appalachian Gear Company specifically, the natural fibers, for me, that's key. That's everything. I mean, they're actually trying to change like shift the pollution paradigm through what they're doing, which is amazing to me. It's not like the same thing. It's something completely different, and that's why I want to be a part of it.
Yeah, so that's one of the positives, and we just mentioned a whole bunch of the negative connotations. So what are the positive connotations of the Appalachian region and the mountains in general?
Oh, just like wonderful, welcoming people, beautiful landscape, scenery, all kinds of neat histories and traditions. And right now, like Asheville's kind of like the hotbed for the outdoor industry. It's really seeing just a huge push for all kinds of gear companies, guiding companies, and things of that nature in the Asheville area. So it's booming from that side as well.
So if somebody's listening and they're like, this outdoor philanthropy thing sounds pretty rad, I want to do that. What's something you'd recommend somebody do if they're just sitting at home right now and they want to start trying to be some sort of outdoor philanthropist to make a change?
Easy, like low entropy level is go out and trash tag. Go out and pick up some trash tags and post them to your social media.
And do not make trash just so you can take a picture of
Yeah,
it.
certainly.
You will find enough on your own.
That does not count, yes. Then, if you're like really trying to get in it, look into Big City Mountaineers. Look into that Summit for Someone program. Maybe go try some mountaineering, or there's a lot of different outlets out there that you can pursue like that adventure philanthropy theme through for sure. You just got to go out there and look for them.
All right, and I know we're a little pressed for time, so we'll go ahead and wrap this up now. So I'll go ahead and move to the last question.
All right.
What is the final thought you want to leave people based on the things we talked about today?
Just one person can make a difference. Like you said, you're connected to almost everybody on Earth now, and so what you say and do online matters and counts.
Well, awesome, man. Thanks for sitting down and recording this with me.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it.
And now it's that time of the show where I invite all of you to head to our website, gogetoutside.com, and look for this, episode 99 with Stephen Reinhold. There you will find photographs of Stephen and links to everything we talked about in today's show, including the various organizations that Stephen has worked with and that perhaps you would want to get involved with, but also all of the different links you would need to follow along with Stephen and the Trashtag movement. April 22nd is Earth Day, and Trashtag will be involved with the great global cleanup, though of course in a digital format since we are all quarantined at this point in time. So I'd like to encourage all of you to see how you could get involved with Trashtag or the Earth Day Network for Earth Day and for every other day of the year. And should you have thoughts on this episode, future episodes, past episodes, or just want to drop me a line and see how things are going, you can do that a number of ways. Go at Butcherbird Studios is how you can contact us by email, or leave us a voice message or send us a text at 818-925-0106. And if you would like to do us a big favor here at the show, please go to your podcast purveyor of choice and, if possible, subscribe, rate, and review the show, and please share it with someone who you think would enjoy it. This episode of the Go Get Outside podcast was produced, recorded, and edited by me, your host, Jason Milligan. Additional help was provided by Griffin Davis, and as always, it has been brought to you by Butcherbird Studios. Next time on the show, come back May 1st for the 100th episode of this podcast. We will be speaking to Taylor Carpenter, founder of Static Climbing, a company known for great handmade chalk bags. She is going to share the history and future of that organization, along with her personal history with snowboarding, climbing, and innumerable injuries. So come back May 1st, 100th episode, and Taylor Carpenter. See you then.